One.
What I've been wanting since they wreck.
No, I
Be my baby.
Duly noted.
Buy it, use it, break it, fix it, trash it, change it, melt, upgrade it, charge it, point it, zoom it, press it, snap it, work it, quick erase it, write it, cut it, paste it, save it, load it, check it, quick rewrite it, plug it, play it, burn it, rip it.
And welcome to the third episode.
Episode 3, the superior episode, because to hell with Attack of the Clones. We are your hosts, the Ma3stro,
Are we going to be making
Dave Levy.
these Star Wars jokes until
maybe.
like episode 9 or episode 10?
Maybe the Force will be with me.
Uh-huh.
And there are some who call me Tim.
Some just call them Clarence.
Oh. Womp womp.
Tim sometimes Clarence.
Tim. Timothy. Present.
Oh, right.
Reference
the
to
Key and
Key and
Peele.
Peele.
Key and Peele speech.
Yep.
Aaron.
Aaron Balake.
All right, but before we just devolve into jokes, Tim, what have you been listening to
That
this
didn't
week?
take long at all. You know, I've been listening to some very not new things. I'm really fired up about the new Avengers film because
As we all are.
I am a huge Marvel fanboy. And just before Iron Man came out in 2008, I was acquainted with an album called The Futurist, which is Robert Downey Jr.'s only solo album, which is really super fun. And what's really cool about it is they referenced it in Civil War, the Captain America film, when Hawkeye is sarcastically clapping at him saying the futurist is here. That's a reference to the album, which is pretty cool. Anyway, in the album there are some really interesting songs, but the best song by far is the cover that they made of Your Move by Yes. So here it is, what I have been listening to.
Don't surround yourself with yourself. Move on back to squares. Send an instant karma to me. Initially.
Cool. It's very true to the original.
Now, I just can't picture nothing but Iron Man singing that. Like, I'm having trouble getting past that I associate Robert Downey Jr. so much with his acting career. So either Sherlock or Iron Man, in my case at least. So it's tough for me to get past that.
Right. Well, for me, I was acquainted with Robert Downey Jr.'s work well in advance of Iron Man. So music really has been a part of his acting career for a long time. When he was on that sitcom, which is escaping my memory at the moment. But he did a cover of Every Breath You Take with Sting on that show, which is really cool. Ally McBeal, thank you for the help. So he did some singing on that, and he recently took the stage with Sting, recently like middle of 2016, not that recent, took the stage with Sting to sing some other songs. I can't remember all of them. I'm really digging deep. Should have done better prep. But yeah, that's one thing I'm listening to. Why don't you hit me with something you've been listening to?
So again, because I'm restricted to Record Rundown, I'm doing that. No new rap or hip hop, surprisingly. I know Cardi B dropped her album. I'm just waiting for that to chart. And no, thank you. But no dance either. But that's nothing new if you're familiar with the show. I did get to pick up two things we talked about previously, which was the Bless the Fall and Jack White albums.
Yeah.
Bless the Fall is great. Here, I'll just play their lead single real quick.
So good.
I need the anchor, need the raise. I need the worst things you can say. If you wanted a war, I guess you.
They're calling it a metalcore album, but it's funny because if you listen to the last track on that album, I wish I had it queued up. It's very much sounded like a punk song.
Yeah, well, my buddy Xavier, he's the guitarist in my band. He calls it a commercial core, where they have all of the things that go into all of the subtitled core genres, the really excellent spike-sounding bass drum, the really intense distortion, but it's a really catchy backbeat and melodic material that's very radio-friendly.
Right, and then there was the Jack White album, which is a Jack White album.
'Cause I know we're connected by love. Yes, I know.
And when I say it's just a Jack White album, I don't mean that in a negative way. As I went into the show on Record Rundown, he has a very specific style. It's very out there.
Oh, yeah. It's such a distinct sound. Sorry,
But that was what I was doing with rock. Yeah. Another one that caught my ear, and this is more of just me being critical of it. There's a group called Project Distati. They are a group of classically trained musicians, and they like doing orchestral covers of the Kingdom Hearts video game series soundtrack.
Something like the Vitamin String Quartet.
Right, similar, but
But
they're
video
a
games.
larger group. And let me go ahead and play. This is their new album is Darkness, because it's all edgy and Kingdom Heartsy. This is Darkness of the Unknown off of their new album. And I used to love video game music, but the more I've gotten into this industry, I can really hear their orchestral samples.
Sampling sounds.
Like,
It really just sounds like East West, like untreated.
Exactly. And as someone who pays for that and subscribes to it, but I looked into it. They used a live string orchestra, and some of the solos that you hear are the actual soloists. But the brass, the percussion, a lot of that is all synthesized, and you can tell that brass is synthesized in terms of sampling and orchestral samples, because they will always be playing almost like really loud. They're always doing their accents like those brap, and you can tell that it's a fake because they can turn it down and you can hear the flute so clearly over the like a full brass choir. And to anyone who's not familiar with orchestration, a solo flute should never be able to be heard over a brass choir.
I mean, on top of that, there's also a great deal of overtone variation when you're dealing with live brass players because
As a live blast prayer.
Now I'm a tuba player primarily, so I don't have to worry so much about moving where my pitch is. But for the super nerds at home who really like the science of music, there are really two kinds of intonation systems that we deal with. There are tons of intonation systems, but the two we worry about are equal temperament, piano, just out of tune enough so that all the octaves work with one another, and just temperament. Now with just temperament, you have uneven and unequal space between notes, so that
I hope everyone's taking notes on this.
There will be a quiz.
This will be.
So, just one example is the root note and the third. The third has to be flat, about 12 cents, a little north of that. And when you're dealing with really great players, they often start in tune to equal temperament and find just temperament to sound good. And that causes a variation in overtones. And when you don't have that, to my ears, it just sounds like a robot or a Casio keyboard. Bwah.
But getting kind of out of the more classical, there's a jazz group that I looked at the name of, and it caught my eyes.
A jazz group.
They released an album called The Beasts of Burgundy. They
What?
specifically enunciate it that way. And the group is called the Squirrel Nut Zippers.
What?
So I'm going to go ahead and play Beasts of Burgundy from their new album, Beasts of Burgundy. So it's very,
What did I just hear right now?
You heard
What
the
was
Beasts of Burgundy.
Squirrel Nut Zippers.
Squirrel Nut Zippers. They're a fun group. If you're into more of the, it's not like avant-garde jazz like the likes of Ornette Coleman, but it's very. I've heard them. People have said it's very like Eastern European kind of influences, very brass bandy, very
Sure.
That sort of aesthetic. They're not looking to sound pretty. I'll put it that way. But I enjoyed it. It was fun. It stood out to me, especially because they released a Miles and Davis John Coltrane album, which is very traditional jazz. Obviously, they released. I mentioned this in the series as well. They released a series of EPs based on their final tour in 1960 when they did concerts in Stockholm, Paris, and Copenhagen. They released the concerts individually, and now they've released them all together. And it's fun because you get to hear them more traditionally. So here, if you want something more palatable in terms of jazz. That was the end of Davis's solo right before Coltrane pops in. But that specific thing you just heard, that was them in the Olympia Theater in Paris in 1960. So if you want something more traditional and, again, palatable maybe, that's out there. The album ends with a very good interview with John Coltrane about himself and working with Davis. And I thought that was extremely interesting.
I bet that would be a fascinating discussion.
It was great. It's about a 6-minute short little interview at the very end of the album. I loved it. but I'm kind of rooted in this sort of thing. So, but yeah, other than that, a couple of other things, but we'll get into those later. You got anything else that you've been going through?
I do. So the next two things are really largely connected. So I used to be a pretty big Five Finger Death Punch fan, but when all of them, this band sort of went down a really kind of strange route as far as their aesthetic goes, because the music is it's consistently very punchy metal, very Andy Wallace sound. But they have been getting more and more country-sounding lyrics. So the lyrics seem to be out of place because they're so woe is me. And there's the album Watch Your Six. The big single from it is called Jekyll and Hyde. Right now, when you think of Jekyll and Hyde, to me, that conjures images of science, of monsters, of tragedy, of death.
So very the narrative elements of it.
Right. Now, what they were singing about was he literally is just complaining about his problems. Like, I've got a demon inside. There is so much gosh darn weight on my shoulders. I can't just live my mother trucking life.
This is
I'm
a
like, are you
PG-13
serious?
podcast.
Are you serious? That's what. So you're going to use the narrative title from a piece of awesome literature and make it about how hard it is for you.
It is a very, I don't want to say juvenile, because that is a lot of...
No, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
He's throwing a fit.
juvenile. We'll just throw it out there.
It is adolescent writing. One of my friends once said, really incredible artists create art around ideas, right? Really great, acceptable artists create art about things. Horrible artists create art about themselves. And I completely agree with that. Even if it's excellent, like, production value, if you're just complaining for a half hour, man, I think that you should revisit your artistic approach, because you can achieve those expressive elements without saying, it's really hard for me.
I mean, if we want to go into the history of it, that's the idea that was put forth in Romanticism during the 1800s. The idea of a hopeless romantic, the glorification of either very bad times or very good times, typically very bad times.
Generally.
Yep.
I mean, yes. So that's the preface to Five Finger Death Punch's Fake, which just hit the A-list day before yesterday. Here it is. So, literally just complaining for the entire chorus about someone. So that hasn't changed, my opinion. Nothing has changed about my opinion with Five Finger Death Punch. What I find disappointing is the band Trivium.
I'm not bad. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I'm just disappointed because they're really, the band itself, the backing group is fine. Ivan is just the worst. He's just the worst. So the next song I'm showing you is the newer Trivium song. If I can find it. Where did it go? I've lost it. It's gone forever. Bye-bye. Okay, it's called Endless Night. Now, earlier this quarter, they had a song called Heart From Your Hate, which is, again, the same sort of Five Finger Death Punch kind of whining.
I remember going through this album when the Sin of the Sentence came on. I was mostly focused on the title track at the time.
Right.
But I'm trying to remember it. It's been a while, and I'm just inundated with stuff. But
yeah, well, the Trivium sound went from really excellent scream-oriented vocals in metal to the Five Finger Death Punch formula of just sort of melodic singing with heavy backing band, but in a way that is just completely meaningless and void of value, in my opinion.
yeah, I remember looking back at this the end of October.
Yeah,
beginning of
it's been a
November.
minute.
Yeah.
So this is Endless Night. If it'll play. Thanks, Internet. It's so strange to hear Trivium in 4/4. They roll around multimeter for forever, and that the reason I selected that part of the song is just to show how much their sound has changed in a way that is not progressive toward anything but commercialism, and this is really frustrating.
I mean, the worst thing to ever happen to music is when people realize they could make money off of it.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so that's what I've been listening to. It sounds like I have a lot of angst about it, but I really don't. It's just that when you're dealing with these sorts of things, I think was it Edward Elgar said that competition is for horses, not artists, and that sort of applies to what we're talking about here. In that you could create really bad art because of bad incentives.
You can.
You know.
You absolutely can.
Anyway, you have anything else that you want to show us?
I do have one more, but that kind of ties into our next segment. So we'll
Great.
go over that shortly, right after this break.
We'll catch it after the break. Thank you for joining us. This is Duly Noted with Dave and Tim. And we are back.
We absolutely are. So I left us at the end of the break saying there's one more thing I want to talk about, but it does lead into our next topic of discussion.
Show me what you got.
So, Wynton Marsalis.
Who's that?
Is a well-known jazz
Nobody.
musician.
Oh.
He's a great trumpet player, and if you watch the show that I released on Friday, you'll notice that he released a compilation album entitled "United We Swing: The Best of Jazz at the Lincoln Center Galas." Those galas were held between 2003 and 2007, when he was the managing and artistic director of the Lincoln Centers at that time. So he did a lot of performances. This album was him doing covers of songs, jazz renditions of them, but with the original artist that he was
That's so cool.
doing.
That is so cool.
So the one that my favorite one is they did "Are You Gonna Go My Way," which is a Lenny Kravitz song, and they did it with Lenny Kravitz, and this is the Wynton Marsalis Septet. So let me give you a little taste of that.
But what I really want to know is, oh, are you gonna go my way?
So we can hear that is Lenny Kravitz actually singing with the Wynton Marsalis Septet. And they have a bunch of them. They do a bunch of songs, just pulling up the list of them. They do stuff with the Blind Boys of Alabama, Bob Dylan, Ray Charles, Eric Clapton, Willie Nelson, John Mayer, John Legend, Jimmy Buffett, Carrie Smith. So it's a bunch of stuff, and they're doing all their songs. So for Bob Dylan, it takes a lot to laugh. It takes a train to cry. Or for Ray Charles, I'm gonna move to the outskirts of town. For Jimmy Buffett, it's Fool's Paradise. And just doing a lot
Not
of
to be confused with Gangster's Paradise.
absolutely, or a cheeseburger
They're
in that
very
same place.
similar, but they're not the same.
But it's all jazz renditions of the songs, and it's nice to be able to hear this diversity of the artists they're working with. I mean, you wouldn't normally, that was a very bluesy track. You wouldn't normally associate Lenny Kravitz with any sort of kind of jazzy thing.
Yeah, it's so funny listening to that recording because it's clear that Lenny is really used to the way he probably over-rehearsed that original song, which is like, I was born.
But they half-timed it.
Yeah, and then they like also added this weird swing groove to it as well, so you hear like the
But
I was born.
But he was singing the lyrics in the same way. And actually, in that track, at the guitar solo, they actually double time it. So I'm to so he can do the guitar solo. And I'm trying to think if they were just accommodating him for that. And it's actually very funny. But that was released at the end of March 23rd, and it just charted in the jazz albums, just under the Davis and Coltrane. But another album that was released, I believe, yesterday. Just double checking. Yeah, it was released yesterday, and it's very much a double album. So for those of you that don't know, Elton John, some of you may have heard of him.
Another nobody. Who is that? What do they do?
Rocket Man, Benny and the Jets, that sort of thing.
No, I'm not familiar.
All right. Well, regardless.
What about Lion King?
No, I don't think he did Lion King.
No.
I think that was Lin-Manuel Miranda.
No, that was Hans Zimmer. He
yes,
can't
of
read.
course. He's released these pair of albums called Revamp and Restoration. If you want the full title of those, they're both followed by Reimagining the Songs of Elton John and Bernie Taupin.
What an interesting restatement for these recordings of Revamp and Restoration.
For those of you who don't know, Bernie Taupin was a prominent writer who's worked a lot with Elton John, worked on a lot of his songs, writing the material for it.
And reading.
And reading.
Revamp.
Yes. Regardless,
Well, I can't read,
so it's a
so.
bunch of reimaginings of his older stuff. There are, again, two albums, Revamp and Restoration. Revamp is much more of a pop rock focus, while Restoration is more of a country focus.
I see.
So I'm gonna go ahead and play you one from. I'll play you the first track from each of these. They're all Elton John songs. So the first one we have is Benny and the Jets. It does have an Elton John sample in there, but it's done by
Benny.
Pink and Logic of all people.
Wait, Pink and Logic?
Pink and Logic.
No, so just so that we're clear, this is not really an Elton John recording, right?
No, this is. I believe it is them sampling the original song, but the
Okay.
part I have queued up is just Pink going into Logic.
Show me what you
So
got.
let's see what we got.
Yeah. Let me get it now, mama. I made it. True story, I have upgraded. Everybody back then used to hate it. Now they all
Light on that
appreciate it.
synth, man. That's disgusting.
So as you can see, that is a very different rendition of Benny and the Jets.
Yeah, I'll say.
But if we
Yeah.
if we go to the restoration side of it, this is Little Big Town doing Rocket Man.
I'm a rockin' man. Rockin' man. Burning out his fuse up there alone.
There, and we can hear a bit of the twang at the end
Oh,
of
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But so you can see this big change between the two. But the reason I'm bringing this up is both Marsalis and Elton John are releasing these albums that are very focused on this idea of genre mixture. For Wynton Marsalis, it was taking other people's tracks and making them into jazz while still performing them with the original artist.
Which is a really interesting gimmick. I don't think I've ever seen it.
And as for Elton John, it's all of his music being done by other artists, but kind of morphing it into their genres.
Now, I have seen something like that before. There was a West Side Story revival album that featured, like, Salt and Peppa, Phil Collins, Lil Richard, all of these Lil Richard. I'm kidding. It's Little Richard.
And we're back. Sorry for that.
They didn't like that joke at all.
No.
They literally stopped
no.
me.
So regardless,
My heart is sad.
regardless, just to wrap up this story. So I think these revamps and restorations, these two albums, are probably due to the fact that Elton John is retiring.
Yep. He's on his way out.
Yep.
Those stories with
He's
his Vegas
as right now
show.
he's finishing up his wonderful Crazy Night tour. That'll be ending come the beginning of July, and then right after that he is starting his farewell Yellow Brick Road tour, which actually starts in September.
But he's been a busy man because he was doing a stretch on Vegas.
Right.
And there are these amazing stories of people like throwing Mardi Gras beads at his face and like pushing him while he's on stage. It's
Yep.
crazy. And he looks so unhappy. He's like playing. He's doing a great job.
He's
And he's like,
He's
I'm a
getting up
grumpy
there.
old man.
This farewell tour has 93 shows. There'll be plenty of chances to see him, so don't worry yourselves. But I do like seeing these more reimaginings and these genre
That's so
mixtures
cool.
of everything. But so I very much enjoyed just going through those albums and the fact that bigger artists are doing them.
Yeah.
Now, do we want to get into the nitty and gritty of what's going on in the industry?
I love this news. I love it's those. So there's some really interesting things that have happened. If we have any investors in the audience, I'm sure you knew about this. Spotify went public this week with just really unusual events surrounding it. So, first of all, when they went public, their stocks soared crazy 25%, crazy increases in stock price, but off the bat immediately overvalued. And then there was a sell-off, a huge sell-off. Sony sold 17% of their stock in Spotify for something like $250 million. Millions and millions and millions of dollars. Just boom, gone right out of the coffers. And that caused additional sell-offs. So to their benefit, Spotify did a thing called direct listing on Wall Street. And it gets a little complicated, and I'm no expert, but...
Is this when I start pressing all the buttons for all the sound effects?
Pew, pew, pew. No.
Sell.
So this is a bit from a investment website that summarizes what happened. Normally, with the initial public offerings, companies coming to the market hire investing banks to advise on the process, organize a roadshow with would-be investors, and help the market shares. In other words, you have banks assisting with the pitch to people who are moving money. Okay? Now, the banks also, quote, underwrite the offer, meaning that they agree at a price to buy shares. So there's a bottom line, a guarantee that there will be some kind of investment. So that gives them stability. In this case, however, the Spotify company, now listed on the market as just Spot, which is an unwise choice for a lot of reasons, but they've opted into something called direct listing. They hired Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Stacks, Fat Stacks, Morgan Stanley, and the boutique investment bank Allen and Company as financial advisors, but they were not underwriting the issue as there were no new shares being sold. In other words, the company did not maintain their original stock pool. So they didn't divide anything else up. Like if they had holdings, they could have divided those up into additional shares and sold those to other people, right? But instead, they maintained the same pool and opted out of the underwriting because they believed that they would maintain stability because of that. And that was not true because Sony's like, F that, I'm out of here. 17% is gone, $250 million in Sony's coffers.
That is a lot of money moving very quickly.
3 days is all that it took for that. They found some stability, and more importantly, the news was able to make a lot of really, really great puns. Like Spotify pulls out all the stops. It's an organ joke. Spotify strikes a chord with investors. Come on, that was awesome. Spotify ends day on a bad note. This is hilarious. Out of sync. The stream is dry. All of these were puns that I saw when I was doing my research for this.
I don't know whether to be mad at you for saying them or just news in general.
Why not both? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, so the market was really volatile because no one knew what to do about this. You had this enormous company that really, as far as usage goes, was starting to catch up to Amazon as far as their digital platform is concerned, and it's really genuinely representing a threat to Netflix and is causing problems for Pandora.
I was going to say, I believe they're the biggest streamer of anything behind Netflix.
That is a true statement.
Yes, okay.
As of our recording this today. So that's what I've got for you on the news side.
What does that mean though for like the people who aren't like the people who just use Spotify?
Right now, it means very little.
Okay.
What it's doing is changing the value of the company, and what's great about it is when these companies go public like this, a huge amount of money comes into their coffers for development. So as of right this second, Spotify. Actually, as of a week ago, Spotify primarily was receiving money from two sources: subscribers, which honestly not a huge pool, and advertisers.
Which is for all which is when you hear the ads for the free accounts.
Right, and they were maintaining a good company fiscal structure, really by shorting artists. They were paying really pennies, literally pennies or fractions of pennies.
Their business model was tumultuous, to say the least.
Tumultuous is a good word for it. Taylor Swift went to war with them several times.
A number of artists did.
I think Taylor Swift was the highest profile one.
She was the biggest one, yes.
And
there are a couple followed suit.
I remember reading something about that, about Spotify's choices being the primary motivation for Jay-Z's Tidal platform,
yep.
which is awesome for artists. It's a little exclusive, but I mean, if you get on Tidal, it's a big deal. It's a cool
also
thing.
delays your entry into the charts. When Jay-Z released 444 exclusively on Tidal, I think it didn't chart for a month until after its release.
That's so weird. That's so weird because the day it came out, I saw the YouTube video that was being shared had millions of views in hours.
Yep. But it's interesting to see if Spotify has more money, they might develop actual products.
That'd be weird.
Thing.
That'd be weird.
But we'll see.
What if Spotify goes video?
That'll be a thing.
What if they take their
give YouTube a run for its money?
Well, yeah. Well, if they take their platform with new money in their coffers, they were already competing with YouTube on basically everything but video. I mean, and they're competing really well against organizations like Pandora and SiriusXM.
The problem is YouTube's competed against a lot of because they're also in terms of streaming competing up against Twitch, which is another big game.
Twitch is becoming a behemoth.
Games. Right. So YouTube is almost like starting to pick a fight with everybody.
And those organizations that are more interested in helping content creators maintain good fidelity, like Vimeo, is a great place to go if you don't like YouTube. They're having difficulty managing these not really upstarts because Vimeo is just as vintaged as YouTube is at this point, but they have such a different philosophy about how they're managing their content that I'm seeing all of these players come up against this YouTube giant. And I'm not sure how long Google's just going to tolerate it. Like, when does Google decide that YouTube isn't worth the trouble anymore?
Exactly. But I guess we'll see what Spotify does with all of their newfound glory.
Yeah, glory indeed. Well, I hope that they maintain some kind of stability. It was a rough week to start out. Huge performance at the beginning. Huge sell-off. They found a little bit of stability. Net green, though, they're doing pretty well for it. It's just problematic because no one's really sure where to go with it, and that, for investors, is sort of a risky thing.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
again, I guess we'll see what happens.
I guess we will indeed. This will take us into the break, my friends. So we will see you on the other side. This is Duly Noted. And we are back.
We are back.
Back.
Back. Benny and the back.
Yeah.
All right.
We're
so,
bringing podcasts back.
welcome to the release segment of this show, where we go over what's happening.
Release
Into
the
the
Kraken.
So, first off, we have our tours. Not our tools, but our tours.
Perfect Circle's better.
Yeah, we made that joke already.
Oh.
Starting us off, we have two tours that are going to be starting this upcoming week. We have a tour that starts today.
Today, the day we filmed this.
That's true. That's true.
It is currently April 7th.
That's right. You'll be seeing this on Monday, which would be
Monday.
April 9th.
9.
So on the day of filming, this is starting Saturday, The Offspring with their Offspring World Tour 2018.
All right. So
Just a little-
when was the last time they did anything?
I'm glad you asked.
Was that the
I have the most.
You're Gonna Go Far Kid? album
Nope.
or
It was.
whatever
I'm gonna play you the most recent thing they
All
did.
right. Lay it on me.
So the last thing they did was a song for the 4th Sharknado
Those
movie.
are amazing documentaries about weather phenomenon. There's a book they have out where they go over Sharknado-related storms. And my favorite is the Whalestrom. It's a maelstrom with whales.
That actually sounds much more dangerous than a Sharknado.
Sounds horrifying.
Yeah.
And the picture they use is a blue whale. Could you imagine just a blue whale coming over the horizon in
Can
a
you
storm?
just imagine the
Wah,
largest
bam.
animal ever come flying at you?
It'll be like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, but with fish.
Technically, a whale's a mammal. Thank you very much.
That's sort of just, I just wanted to make an illustration. Why do you have to hate me so much? He's mean. Can I get a new co-host?
Moving on down. So really quick, where did my thing go? There it is. I'm not looking. Starts on the 7th. They are going to be doing, how many shows are they doing? They are doing 30 shows, not that long. They will start in the Aerodromo Santa Maria de Bonilla in Cosquín, Argentina. That's right, I speak Spanish.
Until
At
the
me.
end, you sounded pretty gringo to me. Argentina.
Argentina. And they end July 8th. They're going to end, and this is not my language of choice, so I'm going to mess it up. The Fête de Brie, Saint-Nolf in France. My French is not great, but they're doing 30 shows.
Just slur more.
Moving down back to the Spanish because I'm better with that.
Si.
Camila Cabello, and I'm getting her name this right. Camila Cabello, her Never Be the Same tour, obviously named after her most recent single, Never Be the Same.
Just when hitting you, I know I'll never be the same. It's you, babe, and I'm a sucker for the way that you move, babe.
But she is starting the day, most likely, that you're watching this. I do believe she starts the 9th. She indeed does. Also in Argentina. She is starting in Argentina's Lollapalooza.
It's
takes
pronounced
place-
Wawapalooza.
Well, if in Spanish, it would actually be Lollapalooza. Is how they would say that.
Wawapalooza.
But that's in San Isidro, also in Argentina. That starts on the 9th. She is doing 28 shows. Currently, no specific end date. As last I checked, she's concluding in August. The last show she does is going to be part of the Grant Park Music Festival
Very cool.
in Chicago.
I love this windy city.
So we have those two starting, and then we have one tour ending this week. They will be finishing up on the 10th. That is Evanescence's Synthesis Tour. If you don't know, that whole album was based off of orchestral versions of their most well-known songs. So I'll give you a clip of that.
Wake me up inside. Wake me up inside. Call my name and save
Who's the
me
guy?
from
So that is the big deal, is that they don't have the "Can't wake up, can't wake up, save me."
Yeah,
they
that
do
stuff
not
is-
have
that's
that.
awesome.
I was actually, when I was listening to this album, I was very surprised with that and very disappointed.
Oh my goodness.
Regardless, they are finishing up, like I said, on April 10th. They have been touring since the middle of October last year,
Wow.
which is impressive.
Wow.
So that's what, October, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. That's 7 months with an orchestra.
That is intense.
My guess is that they've been using local orchestras because they're not going to take 500 people and move them around constantly.
I mean, even if you just do local orchestras, you would have to find a pay-to-play orchestra, not
That
a
is, yeah.
professional orchestra.
Um,
Because every single performance could cost millions of dollars. You'd have to have such intense revenue moving. There's no way, man. Certainly with the musician
but
union wages the way they are.
they're going to finish up at the Sunlight Supply Amphitheater in Ridgefield, Washington.
Huh.
They have they've done a tour of 81 shows.
It's pronounced Washington. I know.
yeah,
I know
sure
people
it
who are
is.
from there that say Washington.
But that's it for tours.
Yeah.
Nobody else ending. Nobody else starting.
I'm gonna
So
wash your hands of
let's-
that.
We're gonna move on to
Hmm.
the albums.
Hmm.
First up, we have A Place to Bury Strangers. This is their song Pinned, or no, this is their song Never Coming Back from their new album that is going to be released this coming week. So these are albums that are going to be coming out from their album Pinned. This is the track Never Coming Back.
I dig this. This is cool.
Very, very grungy.
That's very cool.
Moving on, we have the group Brazilian Girls.
Now, I was a little confused. They weren't saying that there were a Brazilian of them, because that's not a number. Apparently, my show prep, I learned some things. So there aren't a Brazilian girls. They are Brazilian girls, as in Brazil.
Well, actually, there's only one Brazilian woman in the group of them, but
Interesting that they would be plural then.
this is their this is from their album Let's Make Love. This is their song Pirates.
Yarr.
Okay. Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Hans Zimmer.
Next, we have someone that Tim may know, Breaking Benjamin.
Yeah, I only own all their albums.
They're releasing their album Ember. I have their
It's gonna be so dope.
their lead track Red Cold River queued up. Let's give it a listen.
It takes everything in me not to sing along.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I
Well,
love
it'd be
that
great
song.
for our sync tracks. Regardless, next up we have Harry Shearer's Smalls Change, Medications Upon Aging. This is the title track from that album, Smalls Change.
Minor adjustments. No longer a band.
It should be noted that Harry Shearer is a well-known comedian, so that'll probably give some insight into why it sounds
Okay.
like that.
So we're hearing there's this weird soprano line and this guy that sounds like, I don't know, he sounded like the guy that sang at the beginning of Frosty the Snowman. The check, you know, kind of
What do
bad.
we have next? Next up, Jason Aldean, his new album Rearview Town. This is You Make It Easy.
Angel, you make it easy. Love on you, make
And there's our country for the day.
Shoot, you done got me there with that one. I love that. I'm gonna get in there too.
What?
Nuclear.
Moving.
Shoot.
Go next on the list, John Prine. This is the track Summer's End from his new album, The Tree of Forgiveness.
Huh.
Valentines break hearts and minds at rain.
That's a really cool kind of Americana
So again,
sound.
there's that country Americana difference.
Yeah. So there's one moment in there, and I don't think it's intentional, but they must have been in B minor or something, and all I could hear is the Hotel California,
Hotel California.
that rhythm guitar at the beginning, the finger pick bit. You want to play the clip again for me? I'll
Oh wow, it does.
that when they got up there to the third.
Valentine's, break hearts and
Sorry.
minds.
Wow, right
Rain.
Yeah, Eagles.
regardless, next we have Juliana Hartfield.
Why? I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
Wow. Okay.
I'm kidding. I don't know who that is.
This this is her album. Juliana Hartfield sings Olivia Newton-John, so it's a cover album. Unfortunately, this is not Xanadu. This to the chagrin of our videographer. This is A Little More Love. And let me get them.
Eyes in the warmth of your arms, in the web of your life.
I love descending lines in harmony where they like get to the end and they're not sure where they're supposed to land, so they just kind of fall. You know, like
That's been used a lot. That was used a lot in Meant to Be as well.
and so they're like the lead line is they know all their notes, and sometimes it's even the same person, and they're doing the harmony, and they start great. They're doing parallel motion, and the other one's like, I don't know where I'm supposed to land. So it's just so sad.
Next up, we have one of my favorite names to say, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Oh, that's amazing.
This is from their album Gumboat Soup. Please note this is the CD release. The original release was back at the December 31st in 2017, but you can now get this on CD. This is going to be their track Beginner's Luck.
And now you're down to the cloud on the table, and security's moving in.
I wonder if they're influenced by the Beatles.
Possibly.
Ringo Starr.
Another king, King Tough.
Hmm.
His album The Other. This is the track Psycho Star.
Watching the window, watching the rain so hard, watching the fire, and getting
Dope.
All
That's
right.
good.
Let's see. We have Laura Veers. Her album The Lookout. This is Everybody Needs You.
Turquoise beam, light up the galaxy.
Some interesting decisions there on that
Turquoise
mix.
beam.
Moving on down, we have Mouse on Mars. This
Is it Mao 5?
No, it's actually the word mouse on
Oh,
Mars. This is their
dang.
track Dimensional People Part
Are
3
you sure it's not Mao 5?
from, yes, I'm sure.
Okay.
Their album Dimensional, so Dimensional People Part 3 from their album Dimensional People.
This light surrounds so hard.
Dimensional people. Dimensional people.
That was
Dimensional
interesting.
people, Dimensional
Next up,
people.
we have Say Sue Me. This is their track Old Town from When We Were Together. You know, I
That's a
dig
cool
that. I
groove.
can dig that. Next, we have Slugs Higgledy Piggledy. Higgledy Piggledy, all one word, surprisingly. This is their song No Heavy Petting.
It takes its toll when your lips are too old. No, that's hearsay.
God, I'm getting a lot of throwbacks.
Yeah,
like
it's
stylistically.
definitely walking down that road, man.
Yeah. Well, let's see if The Damned have anything better. This is their song "Standing on the Edge of Tomorrow" from their album "Evil Spirits." A lot of evil. Lots of
Reminds me
throwbacks.
of like old school REO, you know?
Right. I'm surprised how many are coming from like the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, that's what that sounds like, man.
Go figure. And last up, we have Tenacious.
Just D?
I'm assuming that no, Tinashe.
So no pick of destiny there, huh?
This is from her album Joyride. This is the track No Drama.
No drama, ma.
There it is.
I can cop the coupe, don't do shit for two. All black truck hanging out the roof.
I don't know when Skr Skr became a thing. I don't know if it was the Migos who started
Got
popularizing
nothing.
it, but that Skr Skr.
That's so funny. You know, pop lyrics are just the worst.
Technically, that's hip hop. That's not even pop.
Well, pop like influenced lyrics, so that includes
that's true.
for me. That includes like power pop, commercial rock radio stuff, pop music being the worst of all of them, the biggest offender of just meaningless garbage. thrown together. You could just like point at a bunch of words, add a few just random generic la and club, and then you're good. You have a song. You have a hit.
But those are all coming out this upcoming week. That is the week of April 7th. So look forward to all. If you heard something you like, keep an eye out. Those will all be coming up.
Yep, just like tax day.
Only
better.
God, yep, just like tax
day.
I did my taxes. I'm good. Regardless, that's
Taxation is theft. Yeah.
That's all I got.
It's true and you know it. So tune in for Tim's political podcast, airing never because no one wants to hear my garbage. Anyway, this will be bringing us into a break. This is Duly Noted. We've got some more stuff for you on the backside. A final verdict of personal promotion for a local group and more. This is Dave and Tim with Duly Noted. And welcome back. We are hitting you with Duly Noted.
Absolutely.
Your hosts, Dave and Tim.
Absolutely.
Tim.
The way you write that is you do Tim in all caps, and then as it goes on, you just make them more lowercase.
And then eventually you end up in parentheses. Those are the most sad Tims.
Or do you want to use brackets?
Brackets?
Brackets.
No.
Air quotes.
Air quotes.
All right, so vinyl verdict.
What's the topic today? Hit me with it, my friend.
Based off what we talked about with Elton John and Wynton Marsalis, who do you want to see cover what?
Wow, that's a good question. So, like, as far as, like, dream covers or, like, the most absurd thing you've ever seen?
Just the craziest thing.
Okay, the craziest thing. Now, earlier, I was musing to myself about what it'd be like if Kendrick Lamar covered anything. But what if, give it a chance, Kendrick Lamar covered Freebird? Huh?
What would you do during the guitar solo? Would he just be freestyling?
Ad-libbing. Yeah. Ha. Yeah.
Hey.
Shah.
Hey, we're getting Michael Jackson territory.
Oh no, the Shah is definitely Tech 9.
Oh,
he does it in every recording he's ever done. Shah.
Do you just want like a bunch of rappers who have like stuff they do to cover for the entire solo? So like you get DJ Khaled, Jason Derulo, like all of those in there. Offset. All of those shout outs just in there. Just during the not even single, just tagged all put
What if
together.
we called it just like Mad Lib? And we only capitalize the ad lib part and have a lowercase m.
I'm trying to think, who else could you shove in there? Who does things? Who does things?
Who does stuff?
Who
would you want to cover?
I would love to see Andre 3000 cover "We Didn't Start the Fire."
But like quadruple tempo?
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole point. Like he would just like, instead of what is it, like 70, 30, like it's like 30 years?
Yeah.
I want him to do like just history. Like the history, if he was like Genesis, like birth of the universe.
So the rhythm is
to this podcast.
The didn't start this like da 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 da. So he'd be like da 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 da.
But like so like like just the entire time, just going, no verse,
would be glorious.
No chorus. Like he just says, "We didn't start the fire," and then goes right back into it. Like
and then the chorus would be so chill because you're bringing in Snoop Dogg.
It's like we didn't start the fire.
Didn't start
the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't start the fire. Yeah.
That was really on the beat, though.
That was true.
So it's like you had a pretty good like Snoop vibe going, but just Caucasianed it up so hard. It was just.
All right, fine. We didn't start the fire. It was always burning.
What if?
World's been turned.
What if you had songs that are like objectively good, but are performed by just people who are objectively not good? And so, what if we gave something like something very impressive, difficult? Yes, the band. Yes, the song Roundabout, but covered by Nickelback. I'll be the roundabout.
How good is their bassist?
Not. Boom, boom,
right.
boom, 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 boom.
Let's see then. Vanilla Ice.
I'm with you.
Covering the entirety of Tupac's
Under Pressure.
Tupac's Machiavelli album.
Whoa, that went a direction.
That's actually very just straight up offensive at that point.
Okay. So you know how Lil Wayne plays guitar? Have you seen those videos?
Oh God, yeah.
What if he's covering like not John Williams the film composer, but John Williams the classical guitarist trying to play his pink 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 pink. It would be Guitar Hero Bad Sound Effects, the album.
Beethoven's Fifth entirely recorded by just Kanye West's vocals.
Oh no.
At me.
Why?
But so
Why?
no beats, no nothing. It is just the voice of Kanye West, and he's singing every single instrumental line. You know, he can put words in there too. He can do it every single line, the entire, not just the first movement, the entire symphony, all 4 movements. Kanye West vocals.
I don't know what to do right now with my hands.
He'd do it too. He'd be
I'm
down
gonna
to.
hop
He'd
it
be down to
again.
do it. He'd be down to do it. It could happen. At Kanye West.
Okay, so maybe the words he would add words. I'm not a fish.
Really?
Not a gay fish.
We're doing the South Park joke?
Why aren't I did one earlier when I said, "How you not hop it again?"
I don't know what the verdict is on this one. It's just horrible.
We have to decide to converge on the truth of the selections we have so far. What's your pick and why? Any second now. This is
I'm
like
debating because I actually legitimately want to hear some of these, but they're
Me
like
too.
they're not. I have to go with the Kanye West and Beethoven. Just because
Kanye West and
it's the
Beethoven.
biggest separation of time.
Yeah, I gotta go with Creed and Yes, because that would be so amazing.
Didn't you say it was Nickelback and Yes?
I'm sorry, it's the same
Yeah,
band.
we're doing that joke.
Sorry, I don't mean to take this higher. It's saving me. Some of us just want to be rock stars, you know? You know what I'm saying? I mean, save it if it's worth saving me. I mean,
So,
come
who
on.
are we plugging today?
All right, we are plugging. All right, so way back when,
Back in the day, I went to an undergrad institution called Adrian College.
and when I went to Adrian, I was acquainted with a whole bunch of folks who were super duper dope. And one of those people will be joining my band, Voxad Nil, as the bassist. His name is Paul Vafeas. Vafeas. Not Vapiest. Not, to my knowledge, he does not vape. He's also not Paul Bassiest, which a lot of people like that I knew thought of him that way just because he plays bass really well. In fact, I was able to get him as a substitute when I worked for Meadowbrook Theater. I definitely had some conflicts, like 2 concerts in one night, and it's like, man, I gotta get a bassist, and he like came in, no knows. Anyway, so he does some production. You can catch him at thewordmushroom.bandcamp.com. That's mushroom, mushrm.bandcamp.com. Now, what's really cool about this first track, I'm gonna play a little bit of it, and you don't spoil it, but this is an amazing track. And we've got a few minutes left in this segment, so I'm gonna play the whole thing. Let's listen to it real quick. It's called Take the Sky, and it's super good. Take the Sky. This is from Paulie's EP, titled EP. It's a cool groove, right?
I'm just waiting.
This is so good. It's a cool vibe, right? Really cool vibe. So while it's playing, it was at that moment that I'm like, gosh, that sounds familiar. Like, not only is it the same key, but it is the same kind of tone, but it's so slow. And
I just wanna
something's
do it so
something's
badly.
happening.
I just
I'm
wanna
like,
do
this
it
is
so
so familiar. This is so familiar. And it was about here that I messaged him on Facebook. Did you intentionally quote Aha's Take on me? And he's like, you know what's funny is it's 100% made of Aha's Take on me. It is all Take on me. So every element of this music, even though it's down tempo, is pulled from the stems of that recording, which is really, really clever. So you can catch him at mushroom.bandcamp.com.
See? It's in there.
This is like the best study music ever, not just because it's like, it's sort of down tempo and there's words, which is a big push for me when I do what's up, but it's also like engaging and refreshing. Every so often there's this repetitive element in the background, this drum and bass figure, but he keeps bringing in the beginning of that hook, and it's just so fresh every time he does it. So that's Take the Sky, but that's not actually a good representation of the music on the EP generally, because Paul considers himself on this collection of work as a chiptune oriented electronic artist. So I believe this was produced in Fruity Loops. This next jam is called Awaken.
If I don't taste apples, I'm going to be upset.
Taste apples.
Fruity Loops. Get it?
Breaking my heart.
Get it?
Those are Apple Jacks. You're wrong. This one's called Awaken.
Yes, I started up my Super Nintendo.
I love this stuff, man. Just the chillest music ever.
This is when you new game, setting the text speed options.
Ba-ding, ba-ding. Click.
In the
Ba-ding,
beginning,
ba-ding.
there were 4 light warriors. 4. Something, Final Fantasy 1.
What is your name, traveler?
Are you a boy or a girl?
A girl.
What is your name? You get to pick your hair color and your eye color. Well, that was kind of later. That was beyond this point.
Yeah, I was gonna say this. You weren't picking all that when
No,
they
you
were
weren't.
doing this. In
Which-
fact,
Which 1 pixel is your eye?
exactly. What class?
This is
do
a
you
very
want to
chill
be?
vibe.
Yeah.
Similar to the first one.
Really chill fest.
All right. Well,
So you can catch him at mushroom.bandcamp.com. Shout out to the Art Institute. We're tracking here today at the Art Institute of Michigan in Novi. Spinning the dials radio style. We've got Jaylyn Johnson in the booth, accompanied by Hunter Grunwald and Mark Knapp, and doing the video, shooting the video. We've got my man Peter Putman of Fueled by Coffee Media.
and until next time, duly noted.